Hello everybody, my name is Stratnos, and in today's video we have a new beta build. I put out a video yesterday. Turns out that was a PTR build, not a beta build, so oopsie, my bad. There was some interesting information in a blue post as well in that video, but we actually do have more meaty stuff in this week's beta build. Starting off with a new M+ affix, so they had 2 of the new level 2 ones already in, and this week's build has a third one now, which is called Voidbound. And it says, while in combat, Xal'atath summons a Void Emissary that empowers nearby enemies. Now, this doesn't seem to really be fully working yet. Depends on what empowered is supposed to mean, but it's certainly not super clear what it's trying to do. Basically, like every minute or so, yeah, she spawns, says, open your mind to the whispers, and then a Void Emissary spawns that has, like, 0 health. It's not killable, but if you damage the other stuff as well, it takes damage too. So maybe it's redirecting damage or something from the mobs to the Void Emissary. I'm not 100% sure what exactly it's trying to do, but either way, that's the new M+ affix as it currently stands on beta. I would say probably just not fully implemented yet. I can't say there's no buffs or anything that indicate it's doing anything else to the other enemies. So that's the new M+ affix. We'll have to see how that works out when it actually gets some further updates and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised as well if there wasn't a blue post about it sometime soon, but I figured I'd pull the trigger on making this video because there's a bunch of other stuff as well, such as class changes. All right, so we've got class changes up next. There's also a healing update and some tier set updates later on as well in this video, so you can always use the chapters to navigate around if you're not interested in seeing the class changes. But let's start off with that. We have DK changes up first. Unholy Strength, Rune of the Fallen Crusader, is being nerfed, which this has been, I would say, the dominant rune for all 3 specs, except for Razor Eyes, sometimes for Frost, like for two-handed, or for dual wield or whatever. But Fallen Crusader has been the dominant rune for most DK specs most of the time, so nerfing it makes some sense so that the others are somewhat more, interesting relatively. An issue causing Raise Abomination to deal less damage than it should has been fixed. Deathbringer, the Blood and Frost shared hero talent tree, is getting some buffs here. We're getting buffs to Exterminate, buffs to Soul Rupture, massive buffs to the Reaper's Mark melee ability damage, but not the stacked debuff, and buffs to Wave of Souls as well. So hopefully Deathbringer becoming a little bit more competitive with Sandlane and Rider as well for those 2 specs. Now Rider also is getting some buffs here. So Whitemane's going to cast more often both of her abilities. Trollbane is going to deal Shadow Frost, but it is getting soft capped at 8 targets. And just for Unholy, they are making the Shadow Frost and Shadow damage scale with Unholy's Mastery, which of course increases Shadow damage, and Vampiric Strike now functions with Reaping as well. And then Sandlane is also getting buffed here. Sandlane is getting a small buff, which says Infliction of Sorrow now extends the duration of Virulent Plague or Blood Plague by 3 seconds instead of 2, while Gift of the Sandlane is active. So actually buffs to all 3 hero talent trees, although the biggest ones, I think, are the Deathbringer ones for DK, increasing the power budget, I guess, of the hero talents as well, which it's an interesting discussion. I saw this a little bit on Twitter recently of like how much of a percent of your class's like damage or throughput or whatever should come from the hero talent tree. And it's tough, right? Like, these hero talent trees don't interact with too much of your kit. So if you make them do like 50% of your damage, that's heavily loaded into the 1 or 2 abilities or themes of the hero talent tree. But if you make them do like 10% or less, that's starting to feel like that's Onyx Amulet territory, right? That's Shards Domination territory where it's just like, this is feeling insignificant. So I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see how they land on these. And as it stands right now, different classes definitely are getting different amounts of value from their hero talent trees. And I think it's probably a good thing for them to aim for in balance is not just for the sum to add up to the same thing, right? Hero talents plus base specs, but to actually have that ratio be about the same across all the classes as well. So you don't have some classes where it's like, yeah, my hero talent's half my damage, and other classes where like, no, it's, only a 1/6 of my damage or whatever. All right, DH, we have some Eldrachi Reaver talents changes here. So they're nerfing Thrill of the Fight. They're nerfing Reaver's Mark, and they are converting it to stacks as well. 1 stack if cast first, 2 if cast second. And in Havoc, Warblade's Hunger Fellblade now consumes up to 5 nearby soul fragments as well. So this isn't super core change here. I guess this Reaver's Mark change and actually consuming the soul fragments automatically is a little bit of a functional change, but I don't know if this addresses the main concerns that the Eldrachi people are having with the Eldrachi tree. I think it's maybe getting a little bit late in the beta cycle to really be hoping for more of a full rework on that, but I think it is still pretty high on my list of ones where I don't really know any DHs that are thrilled about the prospect of playing this hero talent tree, although maybe this will make the gameplay better, I'm not sure. Druid, we have, these were in the PTR nodes, these are just some 15% buff to some spells there. Evoker, we have Scale Commander, they're buffing the bombardments damage, which is when the little evokers fly in over things that you're hitting. A pretty cool looking effect, although honestly for me the coolest part of Scale Commander is like turnable, steerable Deep Breath and Mass Disintegrate for dev is so cool. So this is one of those hero talent trees that's like 4 times more cool than any of the other ones, and bombardments are one of the less cool things in that tree. Dev, Eternity Surge going up, and they've swapped Imminent Destruction with Feed the Flames. Again, this was another thing in the PTR build already. Prez, so there's a set bonus change coming in for Preservation. The 2 set's been redesigned to make Reversion Healing be increased by 10% and has a 50% chance to grant 1 additional stack of Temporal Compression. And the 4 set says Temporal Compression increases the healing of your next Empower spell by 10% per stack. Now, this is one of 2 set bonuses that are being reworked in this week's build. I think the other one's Enhance. I'm not sure what the rationale is here. I think that one of the things they're looking for is making sure that the set bonuses don't heavily favor one hero talent tree over the other. I'm not sure if the old Prez one did that, but that might be something to do with what's getting changed here. Hunter, Rejuvenating Wind is healing for less health over restoration, so a little bit of a defensive nerf to Hunter. Hunter, a spec that over the past like 4 years has gone from one of the squishiest, one of the most paper specs in the game, or classes in the game, to one of the tankier ones now. Big health pool, and they added some further defensive options with the recent rework on beta, so I actually think that it's at the top of the, at the top of the middle of the pack now in terms of defensives, maybe even a little bit ahead, approaching those mages and those warlocks in terms of survivability. It still suffers a little bit from, sustain against rot damage, but in terms of like living stuff, Hunter is becoming one of the premier options for that. Serve, this is also changes that are in the PTR build, or that were in the PTR build, but they're basically making it so that procs don't interact with stuff like Bombardier and Grenade Juggler, and it's just self-cast ones. Mage, Reabsorption heals for less. Cryo Freeze also heals for less, so they're reducing some of the self-healing percent-based stuff for Mage and Hunter that I think is fair. I think that's very fair, because those are really, really strong defensive parts of already really strong defensive classes. Spellslinger, Splinter Storm no longer has a chance to grant clear casting. Splintering Orbs now generate 2 splinters per target hit. Spellfrost Teaching now summons an orb at 50% effectiveness and no longer gives you extra orb damage. And Frost says Controlled Instincts has a 4-second grace period. I wonder if 50% effectiveness here means that it'll generate half of the arcane charges. That would be weird. But yeah, this has been one of those hero talent trees that has been overperforming for sure. Arcane, all of these changes were in the PTR build as well, but these are basically some Arcane nerfs. Arcane was really sick in the last PTR build. It's probably still pretty good after these changes as well. And notably, the high voltage changes as well dramatically reduce the chances that you're going to press missiles and only end up with 0 or 1 charges. That chance has gone pretty close to 0 now, but also the chance that you're going to get 4 charges, I think, has gone down too. Frost, Death Chill now stacks up to 12 times. Time Anomaly gives you a water rally when it procs. So again, these were other changes that were also in the PTR build. Basically, the PTR build from yesterday had all the changes that don't need hero talents or set bonuses or something like that to be included. But yeah, okay, so we've got Refreshing Veins no longer breaks. Fractured Frost, Slick Eyes, Death Chill, Thermal Void. Yeah, again, I think all of these were in the PTR build as well. And this choice node split also potentially a pretty big deal for Frost. Monk, they're nerfing Healing Elixir to 10% from 15%. Monk maybe not a class that necessarily needs massive defensive nerfs, but this looks like part of kind of the broader thing they're doing with these sorts of effects, right? Mistweaver, they're nerfing Overflowing Mist, and also Life Cocoon as well. Paladin, so we have hero talent changes to Herald and Templar. Herald of the Sun, Sun's avatar being nerfed in half in terms of how much it's contributing to Beacon. Sun's avatar's healing being decreased by 20% as well. Eternal Flame, 20% reduction. Dawnlight, 50% effective on Beacon. Luminosity, half the crit rate it used to give. And Gleaming Rays now gives you 6% increased healing on Spender. So basically big nerfs to Herald of the Sun. This spec was really good, especially for Holy. And it looks like they are really targeting just the healing side of it. So this, this doesn't change very much at all for Herald of the Sun. This is just Holy Herald of the Sun getting nerfed. Templar, Ret, and Prot. Undisputed Ruling now gives 12% haste for 6 seconds after casting Hammer, was 15%, so small nerf there. Empyrean Hammer, small nerf as well. Cries of Redemption deals 80% to nearby enemies on crits, was 60, so actually a buff to Cries of Redemption and a buff to crit scaling for Templars. And Ret, Sacrosanct Crusade, is getting a 25% nerf as well. So smaller changes to Templar, bigger nerfs to Holy Herald of the Sun. Holy is also getting Holy Light healing reduction and Imbued Infusions reduction. These were both in the PTR build as well. Ret, Crusader Aura is no longer granted by default, and Greater Judgment is instead granted by default. This is nice. This is kind of +1 talent point if you don't need to path through where Crusader Aura, which is where auras of Swift Vengeance, Justice thing used to be. So that's +1 point in that case for Ret. That's nice. Consecrated Blade is also now no longer a talent, learned for free. There's a new talent called Holy Flames that says Divine Storm, deals 10% increased damage. When it hits an enemy affected by expurgation, it spreads the effect to up to 4 targets hit. You deal 3% increased holy damage to targets burning from expurgation. That seems really nice for AoE. Justicar's Vengeance is healing for less. Blessed Champion's now a 1-point talent, but Heart of the Crusader and Zealot's Fervor are now 2. Holy Flames is now a choice node with Blade of Vengeance. That's this talent. Okay, so you have a single target or an AoE Blade of Justice talent. Empyrean Legacy has been moved to where Vanguard of Justice was. Vanguard of Justice has been removed as well. So small tweaks to Ret here. I'm not 100% sure on all the net effects here, but I think this is +1 point in the class tree usually, and it's either neutral or +1 point in the spec tree. But that's just I don't actually have the Ret tree downloaded in my brain, so I'm not sure fully what the impacts of all this are in terms of free points made. Priest, we have a change to Void Weaver, collapsing void damage reduced by 20% for Shadow. Disc, Pain Transformation now heals for 15%, was 25, so again another reduction in the kind of max HP percent healing thing. Rogue, also getting nerfs to Cloaked in Shadows and Soothing Darkness percent heals. Shaman, they're buffing Tempest by 50% for Stormbringer. Elemental, Echo the Elementals, Lesser Elementals now deal 65% of the main LE's damage. Enhanced, they've reverted the LE Blast nerf, and they've changed the 4 set from 100% increased Feral Spirit duration to +1 Feral Spirit. This is a change that I think is aimed at making it so that Stormbringer and Totemic are equally exciting, because I think the old set bonus used to heavily favor one of those two hero talent trees, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. Resto, Earthenwall Totem's health reduced by 40%. Torrent now increases Riptide additional healing by 20 and crit by 10. Yeah, these were both in those PTR notes from yesterday as well. Warlock, Demon Skin creates an absorb for 60% as much as it used to, and may stack up to also about 66% as much as it used to as well. So again, more percent health nerfs. Hellcaller Warlock. Okay, this was a really strong hero talent tree. It looks like we've got some reworks coming into it. Seeds of Their Demise has been redesigned. After Wither reaches 8 stacks, or when its host reaches 20% health, Wither deals Shadow Flame damage to the host every 1 second until 1 stack remains. When Blackened Soul deals damage, you have a chance to gain either Tormented Crescendo or 2 stacks of damage. Blackened Soul's damage goes up by 30%, and Blackened Soul has been redesigned. Spending soul shards on damaging spells will further corrupt enemies affected by a Wither, increasing its stack count by 1. Each time it gains a stack, it has a chance to deal Shadow Flame damage to its host every 1 second until 1 stack remains. Okay, so basically, you're going to start stacking Wither on things. If it's a long boss fight, either it's going to reach 8 stacks, or it's going to proc Blackened Soul, and that's going to start making the stacks start kind of consuming, sort of like Echoing Void type style stack consumption. And That happening has a chance to give you Tormented Crescendo or 2 stacks of Flashpoint as well, which will be very nice. Very nice feeling when that does happen. And there's also a little bit of a safety net here where your Withers will explode at the end of like trash pulls as well, even if they only get up to 4 or 5 stacks. Malevolence has been redesigned. Dark magic erupts from you and corrupts your soul for 20 seconds, causing enemies suffering from your Wither to take Shadow Flame damage and increase its stat count by 6. While corrupted, your haste is increased by 8%. Spending soul shards on damaging spells grants 1 additional stack of Wither. So this is going to let you just stay at 8 stacks. They're going to be exploding, and you're going to be adding new stacks as well. That sounds pretty fun. This spec was already doing a lot of dam as well. I suspect that we're going to see some like Wither damage reduction in some future builds. Soul Harvester, Succulent Soul has been redesigned. A Succulent Soul empowers your next Rapture or Hand of Gul'dan, giving it 20% more damage and unleashing your Demonic Soul to deal shadow damage. Shadow of Death's been redesigned. Your Soul Rot or Tyrant is empowered by the demonic entity within you, causing it to grant 3 soul shards that each contain a Succulent Soul, which I guess each of those soul shards will buff. So Hand of Gul'dan will spend all of them at once, right? But Rapture will only spend 1 at a time. Interesting. I'm not sure exactly if that's how that works, but that would be my guess. Affliction, Soul Conduit now has a 10% chance to refund a shard, was 5. We're increasing the effect of Soul Conduit for Aff and Destro due to the lower soul shard generation and spending rates these two have compared to Demo, and we have the same note for Destro as well. So you get more soul shards back if you're playing Soul Conduit, which is going to have interactions with the hero talent trees as well. Warrior, Stormwall, Pain and Gain, Invigorating Fury, and Pain and Gain for Fury are getting nerfed in terms of their percent healing also. We have some PvP changes. We don't worry too much about that here, although now you can zoom in on the world map to hub areas on hub icons to see available quests in the area in more detail. That's pretty sweet. But here, let's take a look at the healing updates. So just quickly, as we saw in this build, we saw a lot of percent health changes. In today's new beta build, we're making significant changes to healing. Health pools are increasing relative to their Dragonflight values, which has changed how it feels to heal other players in a variety of content. Most notably, we're reducing the strength of percentage-based healing spells to keep them in line with their intended power, and we're increasing the effectiveness of hybrid healing and single-target heals to ensure they remain an effective means of defensive power. We hope with these adjustments that healing doesn't become any easier or harder. We intend to shift some of the challenging moments from overwhelming bursty damage to a more sustained healing profile. I think this is an admirable goal. I think this line as well, we intend, is encouraging because it means they don't think they've already succeeded at that. That means they think that they still need to do that, which I would agree with. And yeah, I think that, you know, if you're trying to make health pools bigger, health pools matter more, and then you have a mage that can press Ice Block and heal themselves for 80% of their health, like that 80% has become bigger as this change has come in. So nerfing that makes sense. I think nerfing all of those sorts of effects, except possibly for tanks, like things like Word of Glory myself as a prop pally, Death Strike, Soul Healing for Vengeance, those sorts of effects, I think there's a good argument to be made that, like, okay, my health pool getting bigger, the incoming damage events being smaller is already a nerf to those effects, especially the ones that are looking at either my health total or my recent damage taken to decide how much to heal me. So those ones I think I would maybe not touch too much. But I would actually think that, like, hybrid healing maybe is something that shouldn't be getting increased the effectiveness of, but maybe should also be getting decreased here, because I don't think you want it to be like, oh man, we have a twice as easy time of healing this key if we have, you know, Aug Evokers and Shadow Priests that can do some off healing. I think off healing should also be getting weaker with health pools going up. But single target heals I do think is a good target to increase there. And yeah, I think stuff like, even for a prop pally, for instance, Word of Glory off healing is probably in a fine spot. I just think self Word of Glory probably should be going up. That should probably feel more impactful. Same with Death Strike, I think could also be a little bit stronger in the current beta build, but I don't hold those beliefs particularly strongly. That's just my vibe from a few keys and some raid testing. All right, I'm gonna hit refresh on this page and we'll see if there's any more recent news popping up here. Ooh, Delve feedback. All right, let's take a look at some Delve feedback as well. We've got a big blue post here. All right, so hello everyone. We'd like to share some updates for you on Delves. Tuning experience. Across the board, we've increased the XP rewards from Delves during level up as they felt a bit too low. We've done a general tuning pass across all tiers and will continue to monitor difficulty. From your feedback, we saw that Delves became particularly punishing throughout level up, and that many specs felt like they had to be several item levels higher than the recommended to survive. We're continuing to review tuning for classes that are struggling. We've seen your feedback on which classes are having a hard time. We also have our own data. We'll be using your feedback and our data to improve the experience for players that are struggling. Keep it coming, and we'll keep you updated. Great. There definitely was a big disparity between, in particular, like classes with low self-healing, ranged classes, like stuff like Mage. You think about Mage is a very strong defensive class in general, but it doesn't do a lot of self-healing, and it has cloth armor. And so you're doing a content that involves you getting auto-attacked, and your options are either kite or die in a lot of cases in those delves. Whereas something like a Windwalker Monk that has some self-healing built into their kit, a Havoc Demon Hunter, a tank spec, a healer spec, are not in danger of dying to getting auto-attacked in quite the same way. So I think that definitely hopefully they continue to, tune this per spec in a really focused way to make sure that it doesn't feel like there are some specs that are just a slog in delves, some specs that are kind of obligated to kite, and some that aren't. Bountiful delves. So we're in the middle of reviewing how we want bountiful delves to work. Here's what we'll be rolling out. Bountiful delves will be consumed upon completion. Their base chests are upgraded in quality. Locked chests are still there, but will go away if you lose all of your lives. Our goal with bountiful delves being consumed is to encourage players to see more delves and their variants. We're modifying how many keys players can get per week, while also increasing the base rewards from bountiful delves, so they're still worth running even without any keys. We're still working on balancing these numbers, so please give us feedback as these new systems come online. Yeah, bountiful delves, I think it's sort of like, you'll have some delves, it's like, okay, your first of this delve this week will be a bountiful one, and that has better rewards, and the base chests from that don't require the keys, but there are some locked chests that have keys that you can open if you do outdoor world stuff. If you earn those keys from all of the kind of outdoor world, moderate effort stuff, things that are equivalent to old super blooms or emissaries, or, world, weekly quest thing, aiding the accords type stuff. Bran. We're continuing to tweak Bran and improve the experience with him and understanding what he's doing from the moment-to-moment gameplay. We moved several of his big abilities to be unlocked at earlier levels, modified the number of abilities Bran has to be more readable. Yeah, I think he had too many abilities in his spellbook, and they didn't do enough each, and I think that he should have smaller number of abilities, but each time he casts one, it should be like, okay, this is important. Because I definitely had Bran, he would like throw a little potion, and I'd walk over it and heal me for 2% of my health or whatever, and then he would like line up a shot, and it would do a small bit of thing, and he would throw a trap or whatever, and all these different things, and like he was doing a lot of stuff. I had to pay a lot of attention to actually see what it was he was doing, and none of the effects really felt like they've rewarded me for doing that. Bran's ultimates now go on a rotation with each other to ensure he consistently uses them. That means his use of his bigger abilities will be more focused and spread out to avoid a situation where it feels like he isn't doing anything. Dwarven Medicine will now heal player pets, and we're aware of an issue of Curios and his levels being reset, and we're looking into the root cause. Yeah, Curios, you basically can give Bran gear and abilities with Curios. It's definitely a pretty cool little system, so I think that, it's definitely something where they can tune it to feel impactful, but it's kind of tough to avoid making it so that Bran doesn't solo the place for you, but also that he doesn't feel like he's not doing anything. Like the Goldilocks zone is kind of narrow there, so we'll see how he does. Player class cooldowns will now reset after wiping to a boss encounter. Hooray! That's great. That should always be true. There should never be a spot in untimed content where stuff doesn't reset when you wipe, because then you're just kind of supposed to wait, and that's icky. In Takrathon Abyss in the Sinkhole, the aquatic hex will no longer apply Slowfall. In the Dread Pit... Okay, so these are just some small tweaks to the specific mechanics in these things, so not something that necessarily is even worth reading out in this sort of thing. There's just little patch notes there. Anyways, that's how delves are continuing to update. I have some videos out about delves already, but the TLDR is if you're heroic or higher raider, if you're a person who does, +5 or higher keys, delves are not going to be something that you're obligated to do for rewards, or even that you'll necessarily benefit from in terms of rewards. But if you're a player who does lower level content than that, or in particular, if you're a player who doesn't like doing organized group content, or you have some characters that you don't want to do organized group content on, you have a character that you just log in to chill, delves and the outdoor world are part of an ecosystem in War Within that is a little bit more rewarding than it was in Dragonflight. We're talking about instead of capping out around the veteran track level. We're talking about capping out at like the champion track level with weekly vaults that go up to the hero track level. So that can be potentially something that you'll maybe enjoy. The delves themselves, there's not a whole lot that is super exciting for me, but they are a good source of rewards. They're, a fun little thing you can be doing. I think they're less boring than some of the single player systems they've made. They're less exciting for me than stuff like Horrific Visions was, or Mage Tower. I don't think they're really trying to be that, although there's like a hidden delve that we haven't tested yet. There's like the hardest one or something that maybe has some element of that, and the boss fights do have a little bit going on, but there's a little bit more kind of numbers checking. Whether you have enough DPS or survivability to live against a mob, rather than like, mechanical challenge or anything like that. It's pretty chill though, no time limit. There's a death limit, but that only gets added as you get to the higher level ones. There's a lot of cool cosmetics as well. You can watch some of my videos on delves if you want some more, a bigger look at it, or test it on beta yourself if you have access as well. Anyways, that's all there's going to be in this week's video. Hope you've enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.